Good evening, everyone. Tonight on the program, government to begin talks with managers of newly commissioned Dangote Fertilizer for supplies as it works to address fertilizer shortage.
Yeah, we just launched this Dangote Fertilizer in Nigeria. It's a huge edifice that we've had in our sub-region.
Also coming up, a caution on usage of e-levy revenue. President of the Baptist Ministers Conference cautions government against saving revenues generated from the e-levy in the consolidated fund. We'll hear why.
I would perhaps not recommend the fund to be placed within the consolidated fund of Ghana. My recommendation will be that a new set of fund be created for e-levy.
And tonight on the Joy Business Van, we feature Quindafred Payroll Services Limited, which is meeting the needs of businesses in payroll management. My name is Daryl Kwawu. Thanks for being with us. Details in a moment. Thanks for staying with us tonight. First up, government will in the coming days begin talks with managers of the newly commissioned Dangote Fertilizer on a possible supply to Ghana. This is part of measures by government to address the fertilizer challenge as a result of the Russia-Ukraine war. Deputy Minister for Food and Agriculture, Yao Frimpong Ado, disclosed this to Joy Business after joining the MasterCard Foundation and IDH to launch the Grains for Growth program in Accra. All right, we have trouble bringing you that story, but we'll certainly bring it to you once it is ready. Now, President of the Baptist Ministers Conference has cautioned the government against saving revenues generated from the electronic levy in the consolidated fund. Here's more in this report from Prince Apia.
Reverend Dr. Charles Owusu Ampofo wants the government to set up a non-partisan group to monitor revenue accrued from the e-levy implementation to ensure transparency. The electronic levy or e-levy bill has been passed into law with implementation expected to kick in from May 2022. President of the Ministers Conference of the Ghana Baptist Convention says proceeds from the levy should be strictly monitored to ensure effective use.
Since it has already been passed and have been accepted or have gained acceptance, the next step is to place e-levy in an appropriate fund. I would perhaps not recommend the fund to be placed within the consolidated fund of Ghana. My recommendation will be that a new set of fund be created for e-levy and a monitoring team be placed to monitor it.
Reverend Dr. Charles Owusu Ampofo spoke on the sidelines of the 59th Annual Refreshers Course Retreat and Business of the Baptist Ministers Conference on the theme Called to Serve, Called to Send.
Today's engagement is about equipping ministers, informing ministers, and reminding ministers about one of our calls: winning souls, teaching them, discipling them, and helping them to go out and win souls.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the National Peace Council, Reverend Dr. Ernest Edujemfi, is putting in mechanisms to curb chieftaincy disputes causing mayhem in some regions.
Chieftaincy disputes going on around the country. Not only us, but the President himself is concerned about that and has drawn our attention to that as a Peace Council. that we find some solution to some of these issues that are going on around the country. And so we have put in place a lot of mechanism to engage some of the elders in some of the communities where these things are happening. We are looking at the Bono issues now, for instance.
Anita Sewajuge's report read to you.
And so the clergy there having its take on how the e-levy should be used. Now, government, as we have been reporting, will in the coming days begin talks with managers of the newly commissioned Dangote Fertilizer on possible supplies to Ghana. Here's more in this report.
The Grains for Growth project is expected to support selected farmers with resources in order to strengthen the country's grain value chain as well as create jobs for the youth. According to the Deputy Minister for Agriculture, Yao Frimpong Ado, fertilizer will play a key role in this project, hence it needs to have regular supply in order to sustain growth. He is confident that the move by government to source locally and through Dangote will help.
We just launched this Dangote fertilizer in Nigeria. It's a huge edifice that we've had in our sub-region. You see, Ghana wanted to do it, but because of financial constraint, we've not been able to start. Because the natural gas that we used to produce, a few countries have it. Ghana, fortunately, we have it. So we are now putting some mechanisms in place to mobilize private capital to do that business. So we will rely on this I'm talking about. And then locally, some companies are producing organic fertilizer. Zoom Lion like this is having about 16 plants in the 16 regions that are going to convert human waste into fertilizer. You see, that is what we are going to rely on. Because when that one is complete, a couple of them are complete now, but we need all of them to come on board so we can be sure that the farmers will have enough fertilizers locally.
Country Program Manager for Growth Sustainable Africa, Robert Asugri, has been explaining to Joy Business the importance of the Grains for Growth initiative.
Trying to develop inclusive supply chain of grains that will empower small, medium enterprises and smallholder farmers to be able to produce enough quality grains for food security and also to supply raw material to industry. The aim is to be able to develop a very vibrant grain subsector in agriculture space, to be able to create more jobs, especially for women and youth in the space. And we are looking at a whole number of areas. We are looking at how to develop business capacity support for these SMEs, also support them with production and mechanization.
The program is expected to last for more than 3 years.
Now, economist Professor Ebu Texin has raised concern about the lack of exit plan for beneficiary of the Nation Builders Corps program. The program, which was started by President Akufo-Addo, is aimed at creating temporary jobs for the youth to reduce the country's unemployment rate. Assessing the impact of government's job creation programs, Professor Texin lamented the lack of skills upgrade in the policy to make the beneficiaries of the Builders Corps employable after exit.
NABCO, so you see, NABCO doesn't have an exit plan. And when you say it doesn't have an exit plan, this is what we mean. It's a very good intervention, at least. I have a nephew who benefited from it before he got a job. It's a good way to keep the youth from not getting discouraged. Because when you look for a job for a long time, you don't get the job, you become a discouraged worker. You stop searching because, So it's good that these graduates are aware that their skills are still useful to the economy. So that intervention is good. But we want the government, apart from employing them, to update their skills. So if the government wants to take this as an uptake, the government can say that when you get here onto NABCO, we are going to get trainers to come and train you and give you the soft skills. So by the time you are done with your NABCO, you are employable. That is what we are asking. We should have an exit plan, a plan that will make them employable. And there should be job opportunities, because one of the problems that I mentioned was that there's inadequate employment opportunities. We need to expand our domestic economy.
Now, CEO of Desert Dew Services and Consultancy, Dr. Thelma Frimpong has advised startups to do extensive research and seek professional help in putting together proposals and pitching their ideas to investors to attract the right funding. Dr. Mensah will be hosting Joy Business's new social media segment, Fund It, which starts airing tomorrow, Thursday.
Most startups have these beautiful ideas, but how to convince the investor to invest is one of their biggest challenges. And so, in as much as every business starts with an idea, you need to convince me to be able to come and put my money in your business. And there are so many people seeking funds from the same source, and so the one who gets it is the one who is able to convince the investor that, okay, I have the best of business ideas and I have the best of proposals. And so how to get the investor to buy into your idea is one of their biggest challenge. And another is the fact that I always say that business is not for everybody. Some people don't have what it takes to be successful at a business, and so how to be able to tell if they will be successful at their business is also another challenge. Sometimes the ideas are good and all of that, and so how to tell whether their business is going to be viable, because remember, every investor wants to invest and make profit out of their investments. No one wants to invest into a business that in the next 2 or 3 years is going to collapse. And so how to convince investors, how to get them to understand and see what you are seeing most of the time is their problem, which means that they are not able to put their proposals together well, and they are not able to pitch well. And so all of that's put together, it also takes great tenacity to succeed at business. And so if you look at yourself and you don't have what it takes, I mean, you should be able to know yourself well. I always tell people, don't go into business because everyone is doing it, but know what you are going in to do and what you intend to achieve at the end of the day. It could be a combination of the two, and some 1 or 2 other factors as well. Some people, it could be lack of confidence. I mean, not being able to tell your story very well as you want it to be could be a problem. And the other side of it too could be overconfidence, being all over the place, making everyone believe that, oh, I've got all the great ideas. So it's all about how you're able to pitch well. And I always advise that before you go pitching in front of your investors, it is always advisable to do a dress rehearsal in front of people who could give you some good feedback, some good critique, who have some knowledge in the business you want to venture into. That way, when they are able to point out certain mistakes to you, you're able to work on them and correct them, so that when you go pitching professionally, you're able to put up with a good performance and to tell your story well. They can equally improve on their strategies and seeking professional help. Sometimes we don't like seeking professional help because it comes at a fee, but then it's always better to talk to the people who know, who have the technical know-how to be able to point you into which directions to go. Sometimes you may think that your idea is so good, it is so grand, but when you seek professional advice, you realize that they are able to point out certain things in your ideas that if you had taken your original idea to the investor, they would have shut it down. But because you have that technical person pointing out some things to you in terms of do's and don'ts, it helps you better. Again, looking in the right places. As an entrepreneur, your aim of starting up a business is to answer to a need, and so location is key, and the need you want to meet is equally key. Some people do not take all of these factors into consideration. There's a need to do a real need assessment to tell that location, in terms of what the people in that particular location are looking for, is what you are providing. And so let me give you a typical example. Assuming you are living in an area which is, let's say, a new area, and so people are putting up buildings and all of that. In such an area, if you want to do a business, it is advisable that you go into business that kind of sells things that people will buy, and so building materials, those things are the things that will sell in that particular area, because around that area, that is what is being used, and that is what the people need. And so seeking knowledge where you fall short is very, very advisable. Don't be too scared. We won't charge you so much, so come to us.
All right, so Fund It is airing tomorrow on our social media platforms. Be on the lookout for it. You're watching Business Live. Still to come, tonight on the Joy Business Van, we feature Quindafred Payroll Services Limited, which is meeting the needs of businesses in payroll management. We'll have details after this break.